And so want to take a little bit of time today because I know that our AP, IB, and Health Academy kids have a lot of questions about different aspects about what's going on and wanted to give you the opportunity to talk directly with me. We're going to continue to do these types of things over the next several weeks as we go from one phase of the reopening plan into the next. So please watch your emails for messages that we send you, either in written form or videos that we send you. What we're going to be trying to do is make sure that we're answering as many questions as we can for you in those videos, in those emails, so that you've got information readily available to you. So with that, there were some questions that were already sent to me, and so I'm going to start with some of those. And then I think Mrs. Mahoney explained to you guys about using the raise your hand feature, so all you got to do is do that. You didn't do that yet? Okay. So I'm going to let Mrs. Mahoney explain to you what we want you to do if you've got questions, and then I'll answer the questions that I have, and then let you guys go from there. Go ahead, Mrs. Mahoney.
So students and parents, teachers, if you've never been in a webinar before, there is a reason why you only see Mr. Hasties in my video. To let you know that if you'd like to ask a question, you're going to use the raise hand feature that you should see on your Zoom screen. I will let your name know of who actually has the raised hand and who will get to speak. You might need to unmute yourself. If you have your video running, then the entire viewers will be able to see you unless you're keeping your camera off. So just letting you know on that. So are we ready to start raising hands, Mr. Hasty?
Well, let me go through and answer some of the questions that I already have, and then we'll get to a raise your hand piece. So the first question I have is will all IB classes be offered through the Roseville Virtual Learning Academy, like IB, SL Math, SL1 Math? What you're talking about is an option in the spring. So right now, with the courses that we currently have, there's going to be no changes to any of the courses that any of our students are taking in either the Health Academy, IB, or AP. You're going to continue in these courses all the way through December. In January, prior to January, the district will send out an email to all families, giving them an option for the spring to decide whether they want to go online to the Roseville Virtual Learning Academy, or if they're going to be back on ground here at Oakmont High School in the spring. Now, obviously, those things can, that option or that process could change depending on the status of COVID-19 and us locally as well as across the country, what's going on. Referring to the spring in particular, because that's what that question is referring to, I need to let everybody know that we are going to work our tails off and are working our tails off to make sure that AP, IB, Health Academy, CTE, that all of our classes are able to be offered and that students are able to get those classes in whatever platform they choose. What I mean by that is if a student should decide to be online, that we're allowing the student that's on ground to get access to that course as well. I can't promise that 100% right now. I want to be clear and honest about that. But I want you to know we're working our hardest to do that. Another factor that plays into that is the ability to have teachers in one of those platforms. Some of our teachers may choose to go to the Roseville Virtual Learning Academy, while other teachers may choose to be back on ground. In the spring, the intent would be for classes not to be as they are right now, where students are online and in person. That's difficult from a quality of education standpoint, and it's difficult for our teachers to do both of those things at once. So it's not the ideal situation right now, and we'd like to move to a situation where students are getting the attention they need either right there on ground or through the Roseville Virtual Learning Academy. Classes will be offered. I can tell you this, they will be offered. Every course will be offered in one platform or another. I just can't promise that, dependent on where the teacher is and what a student chooses, whether or not it will be offered on ground or through the Virtual Learning Academy. But I need to go back and reiterate, we are working our tails off to do that. Your teachers are, your IB coordinator, AP coordinator, Health Academy coordinator. We're all working really, really hard to try to make sure that, those options remain available, because we want our students to be able to get the IB diploma. We want them to be able to reach whatever goals they have in both the Health Academy and AP as well, and any of our programs on campus. So I hope I answered that for you, and I hope I answered as well as I can right now with the information that I have. Another question, my son has told me that even though they are returning to school, they will be in Zoom meetings in class. And the question is that true? I know it's out of the teacher's control, but kind of defeats the purpose of being back in the classroom. The answer is yeah, and hopefully that came through in our video and in some of our information that's been coming out from the district as well as from us here at Oakmont. Students have the choice to either be at home in the fall or be in or be in person. Teachers in the classroom are going to, in order to accommodate both of those, are going to have to teach on Zoom. So they're going to need to be using Zoom so the students at home can see what's going on. So yes, students that are in the classroom may not have a teacher that's looking straight at them or talking just to them, but the teacher's got to try and navigate both of those platforms as best they can. Obviously, we're encouraging our teachers to be as creative as possible. They can move around the room and work problems for students and help students with things. But the intent will be to support the kids that are at home as well as students that are in the classroom. So yes, the Zoom platform will be open the whole time so that students that are at home have access to the content. And the next question is, what is my recommendation for students in the Health Academy? My recommendation is that as far as if you're on ground or in person, that's your choice. You get to make that choice as a family. If your concern is the spring, again, it's a choice, and we're going to get more information to you as we continue planning for the spring that will indicate whether we're able to cover all of the courses in both the online and on-ground platform. That's our hope, that's our goal, and we're going to do that. And we'll get more information to you as we get to that point. Will Health Academy students be able to work in the hospital? If not, what will we be doing as a new part of the curriculum? Right now, no. Our insurance won't cover our students going into the hospital right now, and so for safety reasons, we're keeping students from going to the hospitals. In addition to that, there are some hospitals, I think we've worked past most of this, but there are some hospitals that aren't accepting students, and I need to kind of leave that question for Mr. Moeller, because I'm not quite sure if all of our hospitals have cleared us or not, so I don't want to give false information, but from a school district standpoint, we're not going to allow students to go there quite yet. But our goal is to get our students back into the hospitals, and that may include, that will have to include at some point the district's insurance company saying, yeah, we feel comfortable doing that, along with parents signing some kind of a document that says they are comfortable with their student going back into the hospital as well. In the meantime, there are a lot of creative things that the Health Academy is doing, bringing in speakers that are online. Once we're back on ground here, we know that we will allow speakers on campus, obviously following all of our safety protocols. And so that would become an option or opportunity for the Health Academy to do that as well. So for right now, that's going to be the best we're going to be able to do. I'll kind of, like I said, leave the rest of that to Mr. Moeller, and he can jump in at some point later on and maybe try and answer parts of that. Will social psychology be available through the Roseville Virtual Learning Academy? Again, so anytime anybody references Virtual Learning Academy, that's the spring. That's not right now. And in the spring, again, I can't give you 100% answer whether it's going to be offered on ground or in person or both, because that's our goal. Our goal is to make sure that it's offered in both platforms so students can keep moving forward. How would it work if a student signed up for a TA and is in the academy? If you're a TA right now, we are not, we're not, for the fall right now, we're not going to be having students, if they come back on ground, become TAs again. You would continue to stay in the current situation that you're in, where you're signing in each day. And we'll work with teachers and students as we get to a point where we can really use TAs on ground. And once we get to that point, then obviously we would give that option back to our students to do that if they want to. But for right now, you'd stay in the platform that you're in right now, which is checking in each day and making sure that you're doing homework each day as you are as a current TA. I think that's all my questions that I have. So I'm up for raise my hand.
Okay, so please use the raised hand feature and I will call on your name. So our first question is going to be from Karen. Please unmute.
Hey, Karen, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Hasty. How are you?
All right, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Question for you. So if our students choose to come back in an A or B format, and let's say they are Monday, Thursday, but they've done it, maybe they do it for a few weeks and it's not working for them, are they allowed to then go back to be a C student? I mean, C group or whatever that's being called?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we were just talking about this in district leadership with all the principals from around the district today. The way that we originally set this, the answer would be no, that students, once they decide what direction they're going, that they stay in that direction for the rest of the term. However, as we talked about that, where we got to was this, is there are going to be days where a student may be sick, but not sick enough that they can't log in through Zoom. What we wouldn't do is say to a teacher, hey, well, the student said that they were going to be on ground. They're not there. Even though they checked into the Zoom and they did all their work, we're going to mark them as absent and not count the work. We wouldn't do that to a student. So I think you're going to see us being able to compromise. Again, I can't 100% promise that quite yet, but I would, if I had to hedge my bet, I would think the likelihood is yes. If a student wanted to go from on ground to back to the virtual learning or online learning, the dynamic learning, online learning, that I think is going to be allowed. I can tell you for sure the other way will not be allowed unless we had seats, and the likelihood of that is going to be difficult. And so going from virtual between now and December to on ground would be something that we would not happen. The other way, we see that there's some possibilities there that might get us there. And so I think we will get there, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay, thanks. And that, I think, answers my second question, which is if my kid isn't sick with COVID, but just has a migraine or is not feeling well, they can choose to still come to class, but do it via the Zoom process, correct?
Yeah. Now the one caveat with that is this, and you guys hopefully are getting this through my emails. There is going to be a health screener that's going to be required of every student every day. And so the district's working with a company that's developing an app, and they're actually testing it out right now. And it basically would come out to every student every day, and what the students would be responding to are, do you have any signs and symptoms of COVID-19? If the student answers no, well, they can come on campus and they're good to go. Even students that are at home, though, we want answering that question every day, because if a student is exhibiting any kinds of signs and symptoms of COVID, we need to know those things so that we can work with the family, everybody else. So, but specifically to your question, yes, a student could stay home. We would want a parent, especially if your student decided to be on ground, we would want to make sure that health screener is taken care of and that the student does check into class and that the teacher marks him or her present and engaged online.
Okay, but thank you for that. But if my student has a headache or a congestion, which is a potential symptom of COVID, you're not going to require them to get a COVID test before they return to school per their health screening daily, correct?
What we would want, why we would want people to check the screener is because what our nurse will be doing is following up with anybody that checks a yes. In other words, somebody says, yes, I have symptoms, I have a headache today, I have a fever or whatever. We want to know those things. So we do want kids and families to do that. And what she will be doing and other nurses around the district will be doing is calling those families every day and saying, okay, talk to me about what's going on. And we'll work with the parent. And yeah, at some point what the nurse is going to do is use their professional judgment to go, okay, in this case, we would need you to go get a test, or in this case, no, we don't see that as something that's going on. This is a pre-existing situation, or we're not, she will use her professional judgment with the family to make that call. But we do want to know those things so that we can do that with families.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
Okay, our person who'd like to speak would be Juliana St. Denis. Sure, you're unmuted, Juliana.
Awesome. Hi. I am an IB student, and you answered one of my questions about if my classes will be online in the spring, and you don't know yet. Okay. So most of my teachers, I've been talking to them, and they said that they would, some of them will be teaching from home even when others come back. Do you have any idea about what percentage of my teachers will actually be in class? Because there's really no point for me to go back if my teachers aren't there. And also, well, I answer that question, then I'll ask my other one.
So great question. And yes, that's absolutely true. What could possibly happen is that some of our teachers are at home because they have either a compromised immune system, or somebody in their family does, or they have childcare issues. Could be a number of issues that are covered by the Corona Family First Act. And so they could be teaching from home, and students would be in the classroom online, getting that education. And then we would have an adult supervisor in the room that's supervising anybody that's on ground. So yes, that is a possibility. Right now, I've got a large number, I would say in the range of 40 teachers that could possibly fall into that category, but all of those teachers are working with the district office and our HR department to determine whether or not they will be continuing to work remotely, or if they're going to be working on ground here at Oakmont. So I can't give you an exact percentage of your teachers. I kind of give you that ballpark that we've got 40 teachers in that range that could potentially be working remotely on any given day.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, there was an email that went out to teachers and parents at like 8:15-ish last night. A, why didn't students get that email? And B, after briefly reading through some of it, it was very specific. So it said, some of the things it said was like, if you show anything at all, you'll be sent home from school, any symptoms at all. And one of those symptoms was like sneezing. I mean, I sneezed this morning and I'm in perfectly good health. If I sneeze, will I be sent home in the middle of the day? Like, how is that going to work?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure what email did you get? Was that something that came from the district?
I'm not entirely sure. It was sent to parents and teachers, apparently. One of my teachers briefly talked about it, and I talked to my mom about it at lunch. I think it was sent out, if you don't know about it, it was probably sent out by the district, but I didn't get it. I don't think any of my friends got it. I think it was just sent out to parents and teachers. So I was just wondering like, if we could get it. Apparently it had like a giant, basically rule book about what is going on.
That helps.
But,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so great question, Juliana. I know what you're talking about now. Yes. So what was sent out from the district is an email basically saying to y'all, hey, you got to figure out what you're going to do. Are you going to, between now and the 23rd, you got to decide, are you going to come back on ground or you're going to remain online? And they were trying to make sure that you had all of the protocols and procedures for what happens if somebody contracts COVID and or if you start to see signs and symptoms, really just trying to outline and be very clear with all of our families about what our policies and procedures will be. To answer your question, as I was saying to the parent that asked a question before you, we're going to have a screener every day. Right now, every staff member fills out a screener every day. What we do is, as soon as we get on our computers, we get on there and we have to answer, we have to answer, are we feeling any signs and symptoms or are we not? If we turn in the no one, there's nothing required, we move forward. So if I sneeze or I cough or any of that kind of stuff, we need to self-monitor ourselves. If I keep sneezing throughout the day and it's something that's unnormal, yeah, we'd want to know those kind of things. And we want to know if you're not feeling well, if you're seeing any of those signs or symptoms, we want you to report that in the self-screener because we've got to try to do our best to track that and the nurse would follow up. But to your question, no. I mean, if somebody sneezes or somebody's got a headache, the likelihood that the nurse is going to say, hey, go get a test or send you home is not there. If a teacher is concerned that a student may have the signs and symptoms, a teacher in that case would potentially say, hey, you know what? I need you to go up to the nurse's office and check in with the nurse. And what the nurse would do is do a series of assessments at that point to determine, okay, do we really need to send you home or are you okay to go back into class? And they'll be doing that to make sure that what we're doing is limiting the possibility of exposure. So we want to take it really, really seriously. We want to make sure we got a lot of safety procedures and policies in place. But we just don't want folks coming to school when they're sick. If you're sick, stay home. And that way what we can do is, again, even if you're sick and you stay home, we still want to know what signs and symptoms you have, especially if you've got like cold, flu-like symptoms. We're going to want you to fill out that screener and say, yeah, I'm staying home, I don't feel well. And a nurse will do a follow-up phone call to find out what's going on and assess whether we need to say to you, hey, go get a test before you come back, or hey, no, you don't need to do that. But we want to make sure that our nurses are doing that with students and with their families. To your question about why you guys didn't get it, I don't know. You should not expect that from Oakmont. What we try to do is send all of our communications to parents, students, and staff. What I need students to do is be really vigilant about checking their school email. And we know a lot of students don't do that, which I get it. You guys run on different social media platforms, but we really need you to check your school email, because there are going to be a lot of messages, as I said earlier, coming out over the next couple of weeks to try and give you guys a really good look at some of the safety protocols and requirements when you're on campus. I hope that answered everything, Juliana.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hasty, can I add a couple things too, that maybe on behalf of our nurse, which you were answering?
Go for it.
So Nurse Becky has been trying to do her due diligence in reviewing the student's health history that your parents update every year when they do data confirmation. And there is a place for you to write other. So she's been highly encouraging families to make sure that, if you're a seasonal allergy sufferer, for example, make sure that that's noted in there so that she has an accurate health history, because she also wants to be able to look at your health history and compare it to whatever signs and symptoms that you are reporting. So she can do what Mr. Hasty is saying as like that full view of what's going on. And then I hope everybody can see a chat room still. I've tried to turn that feature on. I put in the link to our district website, where every time an email message goes out from the district, they also put that message in there that's COVID-19 related. So hopefully you can see that link. Otherwise, just go to rjuhsd.us and you should be able to see that. Plus, we post all of the messages on our Facebook page if you have Facebook. and we also post it on Twitter as well. So hopefully that's another way you can get that information. So our next person who has their hand raised is Brenna Steers. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. So Brenna, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I just had a question about what the online academy is going to look like next year. Is it going to be formatted in a similar way that online schooling is right now?
So yes, the Virtual Learning Academy would be set up very similar to the way that it is right now. The only option is once you go that direction right now, there would be no flip-flopping again. If you go onto the Virtual Learning Academy, you're gonna have to stay there, because the way it's set up right now, we're gonna shift X number of teachers over to the Virtual Learning Academy to make sure that they can support the students there. And then anybody left on ground would be here or at any of our other sites. The other thing about the Virtual Learning Academy is, depending on what the class what class you have, your teacher may not be an Oakmont teacher. Your teacher may actually be a teacher from another school, depending what you're taking. So there's going to be a mix of teachers in the Virtual Learning Academy from around the district.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I do not have any other hands raised at this time. Anybody else want to raise their hand? We have Teresa Orndorff. Teresa, go ahead.
Hey, Teresa, you're up. Okay. Teresa, if you want to come back to us later, we'll just raise your hand again and we'll be glad to take you. You want to go on to the next person?
Kirsten K, you're up. Kirsten.
I just had a question about lunch. So one of my teachers had mentioned that we will be having like our first few periods, I think it's first, second, and third, or maybe it's just first and second, and then a nutritional break, and then we will have lunch after school and get out at 12:50 or something like that. How is that all working?
Great question. Yeah, so I appreciated Juliana's question earlier, because the email that went out from the district yesterday had attached to it the schedule that would be used once we go back onto the hybrid AB schedule starting on October 12th. The schedule, the way it's designed, really goes period 1, 2, 3, 4, then students go to lunch, which means you go home and eat lunch. The reason that we're doing that is try to decrease the amount of contacts on campus and decrease the possibility of transmission. And so it would allow students to go home and go grab lunch go eat lunch at home, and they're done for the day. Now, if a student needed to come back, needed to get access to Hub would be after lunch, but it would be online. There would be some circumstances and special cases where if a student needed to come on campus because the teacher needed to work with them, that would be allowed, but majority of students would go home and do Hub online. And somewhere, I can't remember where it is because I don't have my schedule sitting right in front of me, but I want to say it was either after second period or after third, there'd be a 20-minute nutrition break where students could bring, students are going to need to bring their own water, they're going to need to bring their own snacks for a nutrition break. And we would allow students to eat outside. Then there you go, there's the schedule. So the nutrition break jumps in right after second period. Students would eat their snack, whatever they brought with them, and then head to third period. And then at the end of fourth, you're off and you're on your way home or to lunch.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. On that schedule, obviously what you're seeing there is Wednesday is all day online. And so really what happens is Group A is here on Monday and Thursday, Group B is here on Tuesday and Friday. Wednesday is a day at home for every student. During that day, our custodial staff will be working on really deep cleaning the campus throughout the day. So getting a thorough cleaning in the middle of each week to make sure campus, again, that we are keeping it clean and decreasing any possibility for transmission.
Okay, so our next question is from Suhani.
So my first question is, so the hybrid schedule, is it going to be different for students that are going to be online? Will their schedule differ? Because I know with lunch break, you would have 11:30 to 12:30. And then fourth period would end around 1:30. On the hybrid schedule, it ends at 12:50.
Yeah, so everybody's schedule starting October 12th would go to this schedule that you're seeing on your screen. So both students that are on ground here at Oakmont and those that are online will be following the exact same schedule.
Okay, and then my second question was, so senior activities, so in the future will we have senior activities, or how is that gonna go?
We want senior activities, and what you're starting to see us do, you may have friends that are, or you may be personally coming on campus for athletics. Right now, the maximum number of students that we can put together in a pod for athletics, and all they're doing is a lot of conditioning, is 14 students. So what we are trying to do is work with the county, work with the state and the federal government to make sure that we can get back to a situation where we could have activities. Because what we know is this: we know that our students want to be able to be involved in athletics and actually playing games. We know that people want to be there to be fans in the seats. We know that our kids want to go to dances. We know you guys want, junior and senior AMA, and we want graduation. I need you to know those are our goals, and I need you to know that I understand on a personal level, not being in your shoes, but I have a son who's a senior over at Whitney High School, and he's missing all of those things too, and he's weighing and grappling with all of the issues that you guys are grappling with. So I know what that's like on a personal level, trying to help him through that. And so we know it's really hard, and we're working really hard to get back on ground. I can tell you this, and I think you guys have heard me say this before and at other times, this place really sucks without kids around it. I mean, this place was designed for kids and the energy that kids have and bring every day. You guys bring an energy to a high school campus. You guys bring the life to a high school campus. And so we're working hard to get back at those things, and we want to do those things. And I need everybody to listen to this piece really clearly. We're really going to need your help to do this well. We're going to go to this A-B schedule in October. Right now, there are some kids that are coming on and off of campus for hybrid or for the hub in the afternoon. And on the 28th, we'll add that students could come on and off campus if they are invited by their teachers only. And they could do that during the school day, during period 1 or period 2. And we'll send information out on that. But what you're seeing is you're seeing us as a district do this slow phase into getting kids back on campus. If we're successful at each one of those phases, we can get to what you're asking. We can get to those activities. And so when I say to you that we really, really I can't say enough how much we need your help in doing this well. Meaning I need you guys to wear your masks every day. I need you guys to social distance when you're on campus. I need you guys to sanitize your hands. I need you to be honest on the self-screener. We need you to sit, if you're on campus, you need to be sitting in your desk and only your desk. You need to be not gathering on campus, not driving together to school. If we do all those things, then we can keep COVID from increasing as far as the number of cases that are happening in the county, and in particular here at Oakmont High School. We'll be able to progress forward. If at any phase we start to go backwards, we run the risk of not getting to those things that we want to get. And so when you guys see me talking intently about following the directional arrows on campus, making sure that you have your mask on affixed appropriately. When you see us doing those things, we're not doing those things because we want to be, you know, we want all these rules for you guys. We want that because we want to get back to what you guys want to do, which is a lot of those student activities. And we want to be there with you. And so I hope that makes sense, and I hope that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hasty, a quick follow-up. We have quite a few seniors there listening to us right now, and as a junior, they should have received an AMA award and had a ceremony. Could you speak to that briefly about what the plan is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with regard to AMAs, last year, because of how abruptly everything ended, we weren't able to give our juniors an AMA who are current seniors. We were able to do a virtual AMAs for last year's seniors, the class of 2020. We were able to do that. We knew that we would be able to move this current senior class into this year. So what our hope is that if we're back on ground and we stay here, that we can get to a point where we can offer one of two things: either 2 AMAs for our current senior class, do one early in the spring and one at our normal time in May, or do one large AMA for our seniors towards the end of the year that also includes the AMA awards that they would have gotten their junior year. And so those are the things that we're looking at right now. But our hope is to do that in person. We don't personally like the idea of doing another virtual AMA award for our students. We really want to do one that's on ground, where hopefully we can get parents there. If we can't get parents there, we hope at least we can get the senior class there and video it live for our families that are at home. But our ultimate goal is to be able to have families there to see their students receive those awards. And like I said, for the senior class, we would double that up, where you would get your junior awards as well as your senior awards this year.
Our next question is Scott Wagner. You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this question was asked in a similar way earlier, but I'm not sure if you answered the specific part of it. For some families, I think the decision whether or not to send their child back onto campus or not for in-person learning would be influenced heavily by whether or not they're actually going to get in-person learning, meaning whether their teacher is going to be there or not. You said there were about 40 teachers, I think, that were working with human resources to arrange working from home in the future. Would it be possible before we make this decision to know whether our children specifically will have a teacher when they go back, or whether the teacher will be teaching remotely?
Yeah, Scott, I appreciate the question. I'm sorry if I didn't answer it clearly before. No, we won't know how many teachers are back before you guys have to decide. And I get some of the frustration with that, and it's a chicken or an egg thing. Did we get the teachers first or the kids first? We need to know both of those things in order to do this well and do it safely. What I want everybody to know is this: our teachers want to be back on ground. All of them want to be back on ground. I think there are some, just like everybody has human rights, our teachers do as well. And where they want to be is here working and doing the normal, quote unquote, normal interaction that they have with kids on a daily basis. So I'm not going to be able to answer that, but to be crystal clear, yes, it's very possible that students could come to school and I could be the adult in the classroom that is supervising the class while the teacher is teaching via Zoom. And that's very possible in several classes.
Is the school then, for those teachers that will be teaching via Zoom, for the students that are in the classroom, will there be additional equipment in the classroom so that they can see the teacher, and if the teacher is trying to use a whiteboard, or will the students be at their desks using their Chromebooks?
Yeah, the students will be a great question. The students will be at their desks using their Chromebooks. And the reason why is not because we want to design it that way. That's one of the requirements that we are held to, which the students' desks need to be at 6 feet apart or very close there in that range. All of our students should expect our teachers, as I said earlier, to be teaching to the computer. And again, like I said, trying to be as creative as they can in the classroom to demonstrate, to model. Teachers will be able to walk around the room. Students are going to be required to stay at their desks unless a teacher says, yes, I'm excusing you to go to the restroom or do something like that. But it's not like we're going to be able to do in a live setting like we would normally do pair work or group work. Those kind of things, because of the requirements on us, aren't going to be able to be done, because otherwise what we start having then is kids that are gathering, they're getting too close to one another, and we risk increasing the transmission of COVID again. So yeah, the classroom is going to look very, very different. It'll look like it did in the video as far as how the desks are separated. And there could be a teacher at the front of the room, or students are just at their desks if a teacher is not there, with an adult supervisor, and they're getting their instruction online from their teacher who may be in the room or may be working remotely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hasty, I have a question message to me. They want to know about the buses. So at any point when we go back on ground, how's the busing going to work? How do students know what time they're going to be picked up, and what does that look like?
So yeah, there will be buses running when we get back to an A-B schedule. Students need to make sure, and families need to make sure, that they work with our transportation department. You can get that information straight off the district website. There's contact information for transportation. You have to have a bus pass, and the reason why you absolutely have to, and there'll be no exceptions, is because we're going to be having to do social distancing on the bus as well. And so the transportation department needs to know who is going to be using transportation, so that they can allot the appropriate number of buses to get the number of students that we have back and forth from Oakmont High School. So once a student or family gets that pass, they'll work with transportation on where the bus pickup is, and the bus will drive students here each day. And then at the end of the day, after lunch, so after fourth period, students, if they get food from the cafeteria, have to go, and they're going to get lunches to go, so they can go there, grab their lunch, and then get out to the bus stop, and a bus will take them home. They are also, for Oakmont and Roseville, working on buses that would be available after hub time as well. So transportation will be available to and from, especially for our families that are out in West Park. We knew this was going to be potentially problematic, so we purposely have been working with transportation to make sure that was available.
So another question, I believe they're talking about the phase 2, when teachers can send an invite during the class period. So they're asking, what do we do if our first period invites us and maybe our third period teacher, but our second period teacher doesn't invite us, and nor does our fourth period teacher? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's a little bit interesting. And again, this is the phased in approach to trying to get kids back on campus to see how we do. And so really, from a transportation standpoint, there won't be transportation available as far as busing during that time. The only way that a student will be able to get here is if they had transportation, a way to get to school. And what would happen is, let's say your first period teacher invited you, but nobody else did, and you said, yeah, I need to get there because I got to work on a project or whatever. You would get here, and then as soon as first period is over, you would go home for your second, third, and fourth periods. And we know that obviously in there, getting home in a 15-minute period is going to be really difficult. So what we would have a student do is say, I was with my first period teacher. That's why I was 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late, or whatever the circumstance may be. But we understand that issue will exist when we get into that phase 2. Now, if somebody were to get a teacher were to say to a student, I want you here first period, and then their third period teacher said, I want you here as well. What we would do is we would say to that student, you're welcome to stay here in that interim. And what we would do is set up a location like either in the library or in the cafeteria or someplace like that that's supervised, where a student could work on homework as well as view their second period class from one of those locations.
I have more questions being messaged to me, so I'll keep reading them out. This one's talking about phase 3. They want to know how they're going to be put into the A or B hybrid schedule.
So that is Mrs. Mahoney's job. Just joking. It is one of her priority pieces as we continue to move in this direction, but we're doing it together. What we will be doing is this: at Oakmont, we're looking at using an alpha break. So we would do half of the alpha one day on the A schedule and the other half on the B is what we're looking at, which is why your responses to the survey that the district will send is so important. If we don't have accurate information, it makes it really, really difficult for Mrs. Mahoney to be able to do her job and make sure there's a good balance there. And I need folks to remember, we can only get 20 students into a classroom, a maximum of about 20 students into our classrooms, and some of them less than that. And so knowing whether you're going to be back on ground or online is really important for us to develop a schedule that'll work. The reason we also decided that we wanted to do it based off alpha was if we have families, and I know this doesn't affect a lot of families, but we wanted to make sure that siblings were able to stay together, because we didn't want families to have to come on both the A day and the B day if they didn't need to. And we know that there are some families who the siblings have different last names. And so we're trying to work with those families as well. That's kind of a little bit of a sticking point, but we're trying to address that as well. So we're really working hard to make sure that we split the campus evenly in half, so that we can fit all of our students that want to come back into the classrooms.
So the next question is parking permits. Do students as juniors and seniors who will be driving to campus need to get a parking permit? And I believe they're also asking as well about our typical senior spots that seniors get to purchase. So what's going to happen with that, and is there a timeline?
So the good news is there's no timeline on your parking permits, because we have enough parking spaces. Some of the construction we were working on last year got completed, so there's additional teacher spaces in the back, so teachers will be moving back to some of those back spots again. So what we're planning on doing is this, we don't want to deal with parking passes at this point, and so nobody's going to be getting ticketed. So it's first come, first serve. And we know some of you like to park out on the streets anyway. You don't like parking on campus because it's just easier for you to come and go that way. And so we're not going to worry about parking passes immediately. What we'll do is, once we're back on ground and we know that things are moving smoothly, at that point, what we'll do is work with juniors and seniors to say, okay, you have X amount of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, to get a parking pass. If you don't, at that point, we would start doing some kind of ticketing. But don't worry about any parking passes at this point. It's the least of our concerns right now. And we're just planning on wanting to get kids back on ground. And then what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry, parking tickets, and then what?
Senior spaces, typically we have put your name in, you have a raffle, see which seniors would like to be able to paint their spaces, and they pay for those spots.
So the plan for that, thank you for that. The plan for that is that we are going to do that, and Mr. Kentrist, our student activities director, he's the one who'll be setting that up, but we will be doing that, where seniors will have access to that if they want to, and then he will be arranging some days where students would come in and paint their spots. Those and the staff parking spots are the only ones that we would expect our seniors to stay out of. So seniors need to stick, and juniors need to stick towards parking spaces that are available for any senior, not those reserved for those that paid for those spots.
Okay, next question. This student is saying—
somebody has a hand up. Do you want to do that one first?
I'll do this one first because it's in the same series, and then we'll go to the hand. So this student is saying that Chromebook tends to crash a lot while running Zoom, the school issued Chromebook. Is it possible for a student to use their personal computer when they come on campus in the hybrid learning?
We're going to have to stick with our Chromebooks, because of the authentication that we are having to do. Unfortunately, I'm sure several of you have been aware of some of the Zoom bombing that's been going on. And what we're trying to do is really decrease any of those disruptions to the classroom to make sure that students and teachers are able to do what they need to do during class. And so we really want students to stick with the Chromebooks. If you're experiencing an issue with your Chromebook crashing and it's an abnormal thing, it's not, you know, because Zoom is down or because, you know, there's poor connection, then let us know and we'll get you a loaner to see if that works better, and check your Chromebook out to see if there's any issues with it. And we're glad to do that, but want to have you stick with your Chromebooks.
Okay, so Nevaeh, and I do apologize if I mispronounced your name. Nevaeh, you can go ahead and speak now.
So I had a question on what the infected percentage rate the school would be before it gets shut down, and how families will be notified of if and when this does happen.
Good question. The state has guidelines that indicate that if a school were to get to 5% of their population, that includes students and adults on campus. If 5% were infected, that the school would have to close. So you know, even if one student gets infected, the county is made aware of that. And so what happens is, obviously, our school nurse is working with any of our students or staff that get infected. But that information is also shared with the county. So the county is watching very closely. And so we're going to do our best to monitor that stuff and to try to make sure that if somebody is infected, that we, you know, quickly remove them from the campus so that that doesn't continue to spread where we get to that possibility of getting to a 5%. It's not something that we know there's a plan and we have a plan in those cases, but it's not something we want to enact or have to be a part of. So I'm hoping that we're not there. And the state has actually set a percentage as well for a district. And I can't remember what the number is for the district, but if the district gets to a certain percentage as well, they would shut the whole district down as well. I want to say if it's two or 50% of the schools within a district, if they got to 5%, at 50% of the schools, they would shut the district down, something like that. But don't quote me on that last piece.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had another message come into me. I believe what they're asking here is when we go back with our AB grouping, if there's an increase in the number of exposures, will the AB groupings be changed because of the number of exposures and who's getting sick?
No, we wouldn't change AB groups. The reason we wouldn't change AB groups is because that would almost do exactly the opposite of what we want. We would be cross-contaminating then by kind of mixing people again. So it'd be harder to trace. So we would leave the AB groups the way that they are. What we would be doing is trying to isolate and to trace anybody who had been infected by somebody who we know comes back with a positive test. So we'd be working with those classrooms. So that's why we're sticking with the AB group and knowing where kids are at, is so that we can trace that a whole lot easier. And mixing it would just make it more difficult for us to do that by going and readjusting at that point.
I don't have any more questions messaged to me, and I don't see any other hands. Anybody else need to raise a hand? Elisa, go ahead.
If we're staying online, do we need to fill up some form to let the school know, or do we just not show up to school?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I didn't understand the question. If you're what?
If we're staying online, like after the hybrid schedule goes into place, do we need to fill something out to let the school know?
Yeah, there should be a survey that's coming out to you guys from the district. It should be coming out today, if it hasn't already been sent out. That would go to families, and you guys are gonna have till the 23rd, which is, I believe, next Wednesday, to make a decision. If the district doesn't hear, if they do not hear from a family, they will assume that the family is staying online. So it's really important if students respond to that survey, so that we've got accurate numbers and we know how many students are going to remain online and how many students want to come back on ground. As I've been discussing today, it's going to look a lot different on ground. I'm not in any way trying to discourage people from coming on ground. I want kids back on ground. We want to do that safely, but because of the safety guidelines, it is going to be different. But if that's okay with you and you're totally good with that, then you're welcome and we want you back. And we're going to have to get there at some point where we start to get back on ground. But we want to make sure that people feel comfortable, and we want to make sure that that we've got safety procedures in place that kind of reassure people that we're doing everything we possibly can to keep everybody safe.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had another question messaged to me. This is talking about if they sign up for the Roseville Academy that starts in January, will they still be considered a student of Oakmont? I'm assuming like us for the rest of the year. If they're a senior, do they graduate with us? And then maybe the other layer would be if they're maybe a junior, would they be able to be Oakmont in the following school year? So kind of probably some layers there.
It's a really good question. Yeah, although you may have a teacher that is a teacher from, if you're in the Roseville Learning Academy, although you have a teacher that might be from another campus and you're a part of the Roseville Virtual Learning Academy, you're still an Oakmont student. You live within our attendance boundaries, and you're our student. What's causing us to even think about Roseville Learning Academy is the fact that we're dealing with COVID-19, which is something that none of us have ever experienced, none of us have ever lived through. And so what we're not going to do is take away an Oakmont diploma from anybody who's a student here currently. We're going to make sure that everybody that's a student here at Oakmont gets to have that Oakmont diploma.
And then I think the other thing we might want to clarify, what happens in the following school year, face-to-face back on ground, are they considered an Oakmont student?
Yeah, so when we come back, you would be an Oakmont student, and if next school year we're back to absolute normal and it's normal school as we know it in the past, yeah, every student comes back to Oakmont, and anybody who graduates, like I said, gets a diploma, but everybody else just comes back to school and we keep going.
Lisa?
I already asked my question, sorry if I don't
Okay, that's fine. I'll lower your hand, no problem. I had another question messaged to me, Mr. Hasty. What happens to the students that are on ground if the school shuts down? What's going to be the transition to a distance learning? My assumption would be is this is probably a question from January, since we have already distance learning in October through December.
Yeah, so in October through December, if we were to shut down, we would just revert to what we currently are doing, which is the Zoom online synchronous lessons that you guys are doing right now. In the spring, if the school were to shut down, that would be for anybody who's in the Roseville Virtual Learning Academy, they're already set, they would stay there. Then it would become a matter of what do we do with the students that had to be off campus. We haven't had that conversation, but my assumption is that we would just, again, go back to Zoom and asynchronous learning for students that remained here on ground. And we would just go back to online learning as we currently are right now.
The next question I have, and probably a lot of students who are listening in are part of a blocked class, not our hybrid that we're talking about distance learning schedule, but a true blocked class that they've been assigned an A block or a B block. It's kind of a two-layer question. What happens to them from October to December? How does that work? With I come to school on an A day, but I have a block B. Also, what happens in January because I think we're looking at some of the kids are wondering about the virtual learning academy as well as the on-campus one.
Again, good questions. Let me go to the January piece of things. That's why we were working so hard to make sure that our students are able to get the courses that they're currently in, because we know situations like this exist. So what you have from us here at Oakmont and the staff and faculty here is that we're working our tails off to do that. And that's what we're going to try and do, is come up with a plan. I'm sorry we don't have a plan for that quite yet, but we are working to do that because we want to make sure you can continue your courses. So in January, my hope is that we're able to offer those courses in either platform somehow, and make sure that students can continue on and get access to Health Academy classes, IB classes, AP classes. Now, between October and December, what we're doing is we're right now, again, everything kind of depends on the information we get back. The reason we need to know how many kids are coming back is because we need to know how large are some of our largest classes, and the block classes can be some of our largest classes. Even when you split them in half, if you got 70 kids, that's much bigger than what would normally be here. We're setting up our classrooms for about 20 kids. If you have a class that's a block class that's 60 kids, and you cut that in half, we're looking at 30 into a classroom. So it's not going to fit in a normal classroom. So where do we need to put that class? We may be looking at, do we put that class on the stage in the theater? Do we put a class in the theater? Do we put a class in the cafeteria? We're looking at things like that. But what we're doing with the block classes when it comes to the content and how we alternate that is working with individual teachers, we're working with our teachers that are working within the block to say, okay, how would you like to do this as a teachers of the blocked class? And is that are you both teaching on the same day? Is one teaching on one day, one teaching on the other day? Is one teacher teaching for the week and the next teacher is teaching the following week? I mean, there's a lot of different pieces that we're looking at. And so I'm not sure if I'm 100% answering your question, but that's what we're looking at. Mrs. Mahoney, are there other pieces that you've been talking about with the blocked teachers that might help?
Just that, like the block teachers, we're going to all be meeting next week and going through some options so that they can see ways that they can be creative to help support their students, but still allow for that equal learning opportunity. And then each of those teaching partner pairs are going to be communicating to their students over the following weeks what that would look like. So if you have two separate sets of blocked classes, you actually may get two separate sets of answers from your teachers, but it's not going to change anything about when you would come on site versus if you were staying home. None of that would change. That's going to be unique. I do not have any other hand raised right now, nor do I have any other questions messaged. We can maybe hold another couple, 30 seconds or so.
Sure. Folks, if you don't have any more questions, know that you can email any of us administrators, your counselors, your teachers. You can reach out to us and ask us questions. We want to make sure that you have as much information as possible. We're trying to be as transparent as possible about what this looks like. We're not trying to hold anything back. We want you to be able to make a decision with as much information as you can. And we understand that there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure around this whole process. And we want you to know that we're doing everything we can to make this campus as safe as possible should you choose to come back on campus. And if you choose to stay online for a while longer, that's okay. We're going to continue to support you guys as well that are online. So don't hesitate to reach out, email us, call us, whatever you got to do. We're glad to sit and talk or to just answer questions via email. I hope this has been informative and given you some answers to some of the questions that you have. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you again next week. Take care.